Okay, we're back again. We left off on page 142. I'm going to go back just a bit because I was rushing as we were getting towards this kind of a cutoff time. Kuan, it says in the first full paragraph on page 142, is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. So I want to reestablish that point, that Kuan, beginningless time, is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. And true attainment means awakening to the fact that one is eternally endowed with the three bodies, eternally. So the point there is, again, we are all Buddhas in our original state. Point 24 on 142. On the country of those who are to be converted by the teachings of this lifespan chapter and the religious practice to be employed. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says, Nichiren says, the country where the teachings of this chapter are to be propagated is Japan, or in more general terms, the continent of Jambudvipa. And don't forget, when he's written this, it's really, Japan is self-contained. Nobody else goes outside of Japan for the most part. Those who are to be converted are all the living beings of Japan. The religious practice to be employed is the mind of faith. Faith meaning to be without doubt. So mugi-washin, doubt-free faith, is the essence of being able to ascertain the truth that's being taught here. Those who administer the teachings are the bodhisattvas of the essential teaching of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the bodhisattvas of the earth, okay, that I shown in disciples. Point 25, concerning the establishment of the object of devotion. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says this object of devotion is based on the passage that reads, the thus come one's secret and his transcendental powers, from chapter 16. The three types of learning, namely precepts, meditation, and wisdom, are represented by the three great secret laws embodied in the lifespan chapter. So embodied means hidden in the depths. With Nam-myoho Renge-kyo are the three great secret laws, the Gohonzon, the Daimoku itself, and the Kaidan, the place where the Gohonzon is enshrined. And people chant Daimoku to it. At the Holy Eagle Peak, Nichiren, without question, faced the Buddha and received oral instruction from him in these three great secret laws. So what he's qualifying there is that, without a doubt, what I'm telling you is the truth. It's not separated from Shakyamuni in any way. Shakyamuni also attained enlightenment originally through Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. All Buddhists throughout the three existences and the 10 directions all attained Buddhahood through Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. So he's saying, without question, I faced the Buddha and received oral instruction from him in these three great secret laws. He's making the connection that this isn't all just coming out of my mind and I'm making it up. This is a continuum of the Buddhism of harvest, but this is a new teaching for the latter day, and we refer to it as the Buddhism of sowing. The object of devotion in this time period is thus the entity of the entire life of the votary of the Lotus Sutra. The votary of the Lotus Sutra is each of us as disciples of Nichiren. We're the ones that practice and chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo in the latter day. So he's saying the object of devotion is thus our lives, okay? Is thus the entity, the essence of the entire life of the votary of the Lotus Sutra. I'm a votary of the Lotus Sutra. The Gohonzon to me is is actually my life. It's in my inherent nature of the eternally endowed three bodies that make me a Buddha. All right? Point 26 on page 143. Point 26 concerning the person or persons to whom the lifespan chapter is addressed. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says, in the context of the sutra itself, so if you're looking at just the sutra text of the Lotus Sutra, the chapter is addressed to the Bodhisattva Maitreya. And for those of you that might not remember Maitreya, Maitreya is also known as Ajita, meaning invincible. In China, Maitreya was rendered as compassionate one or compassionate honored one, in which is the manner in which he's going to be expressed here following this. The Sanskrit word Maitreya, Maitreya means friendly, benevolent, affectionate, or amicable. He is said to have been reborn in the Tushita heaven as a result in the inner court of this heaven where he now teaches the heavenly beings. According to the Advent of Maitreya Sutra, he is to reappear in the world 5,670 million years after Shakyamuni's death, attain Buddhahood, and save people in Shakyamuni's stead. For this reason, he is sometimes called Maitreya Buddha. So he's qualifying. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says, in the context of the sutra, as it was stated in the 28th chapter Lotus Sutra, the chapter is addressed to Bodhisattva Maitreya, who's supposed to come back from this immeasurable amount of time from now and lead all the people to enlightenment. However, we are thinking basically in terms of the time after the Buddha's passing, in the latter day of the law. Therefore, we must say that it is addressed to the living beings of the country of Japan, and in particular to Nichiren and his followers who chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, who practice the correct teaching in the latter day of the law. Maitreya represents the votaries of the Lotus Sutra in the latter day of the law. So this whole thing about Maitreya in the Lotus Sutra is really referring to us in the latter day as votaries of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. The name Maitreya means compassionate one and designates the votaries of the Lotus Sutra because we're the ones that share the true law of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the law of beginningless time, Kuan. Kuan is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. And that's why we're compassionate. We're the ones that open the door to everyone else that we speak to also be able to attain Buddhahood in their present form, just as we surely will if we have not already, as long as we're chanting Daimoku with faith. Because it's, again, without faith is the basis of all of this. The great teacher Chang'an, in his commentary on the Nirvana Sutra, says, one who rids the offender of evil is acting as his parent. Okay, when we propagate the law of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, we help provide a means for the person that we're sharing it with to eliminate or transform the karma of their past, regardless of what it is. It doesn't matter whether they were evil people or good people. The karma that holds them in the six paths instead of allowing them to go forward into the four more noble paths of voice, hear, cause, awaken, one, bodhisattva, and Buddha, we are actually ridding them of evil in that process. Is this, and then he goes on to say, is this not a description of Maitreya? Are we not functioning as Maitreya in the latter day of the law? That's exactly what we're doing, is his point. So he's saying then, again, in point 27, the last point of chapter 16, concerning the Buddha eternally endowed with the three bodies, which is us, that chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo and that are disciples of the Daishonin. He says, the seed, the august form or appearance of the Buddha or other venerable beings, and sameya, the attributes or manual signs. Now, in the latter day, the manual sign is this, as we embrace the Gohonzon while we chant. The august form is our regular body, however we manifest it in the latter day to do our job, because we've already created the karma to appear for a specific purpose of fulfilling a mission for Kosen Rufu. He goes on to say, the record of the orally transmitted teaching says, Nichiren says, the august form of the Buddha or other venerable beings is the physical representation of the original state endowed with the 10 worlds. So who is that? What is that? What is that? The physical representation is not the Gohonzon that's in the altar. It's actually the endowed three bodies, the Buddhahood that we have had from beginningless time. It's our lives, okay? The august form of the Buddha or other venerable beings is a physical representation of the original state endowed with the 10 worlds. That would be the Gohonzon, but we're a physical representation of that Gohonzon. Do you understand? The real Gohonzon, the true Gohonzon, is our life itself. The samaya are the things that inherently belong to the 10 worlds. The seed represents the single word faith. Faith is what is required for all of this. Faith is what allows us to achieve the 6th stage of practice and achieve Buddhahood in our present form. All these are Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, just as it stands. Or we may say that the samaya is the gesture of pressing one's palms together. Okay, this is the manual signs. Okay, all these are Nam Myoho Renge Kyo just as it stands. Or we may say that the samaya is the gesture of pressing one's palms together. Treat these matters as secret. Treat these matters as secret. In other words, don't just start mouthing off about this unless you really, really understand it, because this is coming from the Daishonen's enlightenment and from what he's revealing in the latter day of the law, not from something that is written in the sutra of the Lotus Sutra itself, because it's now the latter day. The Great Collection Sutra has already predicted that the Lotus Sutra is now going to be a provisional teaching because it's lost all its power. The power comes from the Gohonzon and our very lives and the faith that we have in the Daishonen's teaching. Okay, so we're going on page 144 to chapter 17. That was the end of chapter 16. Chapter 17, distinctions and benefits. 3 important points. Point 1, concerning the passage Ajita, which is Maitreya he's talking to there. Ajita, if there are living beings who, on hearing that the lifespan of the Buddha is of such long duration, are able to believe and understand it, even for a moment, the benefits they gain thereby will be without limit or measure. So what the sutra is actually talking about, Maitreya, if there are individuals, if there are living beings who hear about numberless major world system dust particle kalpas ago is when I first attained Buddhahood, then the benefit that they'll be able to gain is thereby will be without limit or measure. They will attain Buddhahood and be equal to me. All right? The record of the orally transmitted teaching says that Daishonin says that for the latter day of the law, this one word believe in the phrase able to believe and understand it even for a moment is the cause and seed that make possible the acquisition of all types of wisdom, because it's the entrance to the 6 stages of practice that ultimately culminate in Buddha realizing that you're already a Buddha exactly as you are and you always have been. This one word, belief or faith, represents the stage of hearing the name and the words of the truth. And this is the Daishonen's teaching. So you must have this faith in what he's saying as being valid and worthy of your time and interest to accommodate it through practice and chanting Daimoku to the Gohonzon. Hence, this one word, faith, is a sharp sword that cuts away the final stage of ignorance. Okay, because the 6th stage of practice is Buddhahood. All right, that's cutting off all of the karma that would have obscured your ability to perceive that enlightened state that exists from your own actions in the past. They're transformed. Okay, they don't just disappear, they're transformed. We live those difficulties and lived experiences that we then utilize for the sake of propagating the law by overcoming and defeating them each time. The one word believe means to believe in the principle of ordinary beings being able to manifest their original state as revealed in the lifespan chapter. You have to believe in the principle that you as an individual and all the other people around you have the capacity to become Buddhas in their present form, that the teaching of the 6 stages of practice of Nichiren is valid and that it can be accomplished. And the word understand means to understand the actual facts of the Buddha manifesting his original state as revealed in the lifespan chapter. We don't look at it as some sort of like fairy tale. We understand that in the latter day it's now been clarified in a very achievable manner, and we can take advantage of the same thing that he's talking about in the Lotus Sutra, Shakyamuni. So one can believe and understand in a moment the actual fact and principle of manifesting the original state as revealed in the lifespan chapter. And what that is a statement about that 6th stage of practice. One can believe and understand in a moment, in that single moment of life where you go, oh my goodness, I am a Buddha exactly as I am. How did I miss this? I didn't give myself credit. But it's the truth, because it's the teaching, and you have to have faith in the teaching. One can believe and understand in a single moment the fact and principle of manifesting the original state as revealed in the lifespan chapter. But only you can do that. And that's your one moment of life. A moment means a moment of faith, eternally inherent in life. Because again, each moment is all that actually exists. Everything else is either the past or the future. A person who has this kind of faith and understanding will gain benefits that are without limit or measure. But just like it says in the Sutra, Shakyamuni is talking about anybody that can understand and believe that I attained Buddhahood numberless major world system dust particle kalpas ago, can in fact also attain that same state in a single moment by acquiring those three bodies in stage 6 of practice in the latter day. Where there is belief or faith, there is understanding. So if you don't quite understand it, if you just have belief and faith, you will come about and come by that understanding. They go hand in hand. One never occurs without the other. If there's belief and faith, then understanding is inherent. It's there. If you continue, it will come forth. And where there is understanding, there will be faith. So they're inseparable. However, it is faith that makes it absolutely certain that one will attain Buddhahood, because that propels you through all the obstacles and devilish functions that try to obscure your advance to stage 6 in practice. All right? Now, Nichiren and his followers who chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo are certain of such attainment. So he's qualifying. We're guaranteed to get there if we just don't give up. If we just believe and endeavor to understand what he's saying and accommodate it through our actions and functions as bodhisattvas of the earth, chanting Daimoku the Gohonzen, expressing it to others for the sake of Kosen Rufu, we will without a doubt attain such, it's certain. Okay, point 2 of Distinctions and Benefits, chapter 17. Point 2, concerning the passage, these bodhisattvas who have practiced the way for immeasurable kalpas, when they hear me describe of my lifespan, are able to believe and accept what I say. These persons will gratefully accept this sutra. It's a little bit of a reference to the point made before. Those that actually hear the name and the words of the truth, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, and something clicks and they decide they want to check it out, they already have a connection. They're continuing to pursue that 6-stage path that maybe they didn't make in a previous lifetime, but they're still on that same path. They are going to get all manner of benefit and wisdom. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says this is a clear statement of how one should gratefully accept the Lotus Sutra. And in the latter day of the law, it's Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, right? Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is Kuan. This is a clear statement of how one should gratefully accept the Lotus Sutra. The words "these persons" in their broader meaning refer to all living beings, because everybody has this potential within their life. Thus, all the Buddhas of the 3 existences and of the 10 directions gratefully accept Myoho Renge-kyo and thereby attain Buddhahood. So he's qualifying that all Buddhas attain Buddhahood through Myoho Renge-kyo, through Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, through the teaching that we're now finding out about from the original teacher Nichiren, who's made his advent in the latter day for the propagation, for the sake of widespread propagation, Kosen Rufu. Therefore, the title of the preceding chapter, Lifespan, remember we called it Lifespan of the Thus Come One, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo? He says, therefore, the title of the preceding chapter, Lifespan, was given as Myoho Renge-kyo in the Lotus Sutra, and with the words "Thus Come One" added as a further title. This is to be kept secret. This is to be kept secret because, again, this is the teaching of Nichiren. It's not to be found on the surface of the Lotus Sutra. This is coming from the depths of his life and embodied within the Gohonzen for us to be able to reveal in our lives. Now, when Nichiren and his followers chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, they do so for this reason, in order to propagate it throughout the Japadvipa and make all people equal to ourselves, all living beings equal to ourselves. Point 3 of chapter 17, and it's the last point of this chapter. Point 3 concerning the passage, When a son of the Buddha dwells in such places, the Buddha will accept and utilize them for the sake of the achievement of widespread propagation. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says this passage is a clear statement concerning the Buddha body that is freely accepted or received and utilized, or the Buddha body of limitless joy. We're all Buddhas of we're all a Buddha of limitless joy. We freely give our bodies for the sake of the law. We freely utilize our bodies for the sake of propagation of the law. We freely give our bodies for without begrudging our lives, okay, for the sake of the law. The words "in such places" refer to the ground upon which the Buddha eternally endowed with the three bodies stands. It refers to in such places as where I am at this moment, where you are at this moment. It's not some other place, okay? The words "in such places" refer to the ground upon which the Buddha eternally endowed with the three bodies, each one of us, stands, our original state of life. The son or sons of the Buddha are the votaries of the Lotus Sutra. All right, so the son or sons of the Buddha are the votaries of the Lotus Sutra. The Buddha's sons are bodhisattvas, and the votaries of Lotus Sutra are bodhisattvas. So all bodhisattvas are the sons of the Buddha of the original state. The word "dwells" means to believe and to understand this teaching that I'm reading to you now. Not the 28th chapter Lotus Sutra, but this teaching, the orally transmitted teachings, which is the ultimate teaching that the Daishonin left behind for the sake of all the living beings of Mappo, the time period we live in that will continue to be Mappo for 10,000 years. Now, Nichiren and his followers who chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo dwell on the ground of the wonderful law. They are the Buddha bodies that are accepted and utilized. What I just said. We are the Buddha bodies that are accepted and utilized for the sake of the propagation of the law. You should ponder deeply on this. I have. That's why I just told you what I said. Chapter 18 on page 146, the benefits of responding with joy. Just two important points. Point 1, regarding the benefits of responding with joy to Myoho Renge-kyo. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says respond means to respond to and comply with actuality and principle. That means that you actually do it. You don't just hear it and think you know it. You actually accommodate the requirement of not begrudging your life, of chanting Daimoku to the object of devotion until you realize that the object of devotion is actually a mirror of the original state of your life, embodied with endowed with the three bodies. You are a Buddha in your present form. That's the 6th stage of practice. Okay? Joy means that oneself and others experience joy. By actuality is meant responding to and complying with the actual fact of Shakyamuni manifesting in his life the original state of enlightenment, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, numberless major world systems, dust particle, kalpas ago. By principle is meant responding to the principle of ordinary people, not just Shakyamuni, being able to manifest their original states just like he did. In the end, then, responding means responding to and complying with the inner truth of the lifespan chapter, which is that you're already a Buddha exactly as you are. When that is done, then both oneself and others together will take joy in their possession of wisdom and compassion, because as you expound and express to them your enlightenment, they have the door of enlightenment opened up to themselves, and as they grow, they also gain that same exact wisdom and compassion. And so you experience it together. It's not something that just one person gets. Everybody gets to enjoy the joy of being the Buddha. Now, when Nichiren and his followers chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, they are expressing joy in the fact that they will inevitably become Buddhas eternally endowed with the three bodies, regardless at which stage we're in terms of the 6 stages of practice. For that reason, we may say that the word respond applies to the law one responds to. So he says respond applies to Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, while joy applies to the person one takes joy in. The person is the ancient Buddha of numberless major world system dust particle kalpas ago, Shakyamuni. The law is Nam Myoho Renge Kyo of the lifespan chapter. To respond to them and take joy in them is what is meant by the words responding with joy. But again, we're disciples of Nichiren. We're not disciples of Shakyamuni, or we would have appeared in the former or the middle day of the law. The latter day of the law is the time when the bodhisattvas of the earth of the essential teaching, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, actually appear. Speaking broadly, to respond may be regarded as another name for faith, because it's our faith in this teaching that allows us to make this progression to stage 6 of practice. To respond means simply to have the mind of faith. The mind of faith is to be of the same mind as Nichiren. That's what we aspire to be. We aspire to be identical to Nichiren Daishonin, and that's what we actually accomplish when we achieve a stage 6 of practice. We understand our lives in the eternal manner that the Daishonin is opening up the way for us to, and is declared here. It's not on the surface of the Lotus Sutra that this is all stated. That's why Shakyamuni said a minute ago, those that can believe and understand that it's been numberless major world system particles, dust particle kalpas, will achieve the same enlightenment that I have. The Daishonin is saying the same thing. We will achieve the same enlightenment as he has. The person, okay, so the law is Nam Myoho Renge Kyo of the lifespan chapter, and the Daishonin is the Buddha of Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. To respond to them and take joy in them is what is meant by the words responding with joy. That's the name of this chapter, benefits of responding with joy. Broadly speaking, to respond may be regarded as another name for faith. To respond means simply to have the mind of faith. That is why it is stated in the second volume of the Lotus Sutra, it is because they have faith in the Buddha's words. Here it would be the Daishonin's words, that they can comply with this sutra. The Daishonin is a Buddha, right? He's the Buddha of limitless joy. Not because of any wisdom of their own. So it's not because of any brain power to perceive something in the sutra. It's by trying and achieving the pursuit of having the same mind as Nichiren, the same compassion, the same depth of understanding, understanding Kuan, understanding beginningless time, understanding that you are eternally endowed with the 3 bodies. You've always been a Buddha. You will always be a Buddha. There's nothing more to worry about. Might as well propagate the law to others so they understand the same thing. Not because of any wisdom of their own. This only comes from the teaching of the mentor. Point 2 on the passage describing the benefits of urging a person to listen to the Lotus Sutra. Breath free of foul odor, a fragrance of utpala flowers constantly emitted by the mouth. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says the word breath refers to the daimoku. It's not about your breath. So this isn't about having a breath mint. This is like, again, the free of foul odor means that the breath is not tainted by any of the provisional teachings, such as those regarding Amida Buddha. Expedient means that can never lead to the attainment of the way. A fragrance of utpala flowers refers to the Lotus Sutra, but now in the latter day of the law, it means the daimoku. Okay? The passage in the Expedient Means chapter that reads a wonderful law such as this, like the blooming of the Udambara flower, refers to the principle of 3,000 realms in a single moment of life, which is the theoretical construct for us to perceive the reality that Buddhahood exists in our lives even when we're just common mortals living in the 9 worlds. One should reflect carefully on this. That's from Tentai. The word constantly refers to that which constantly abides throughout the 3 existences, our original state of existence, our original state of life. The word mouth refers to the mouth of the votary of the Lotus Sutra that propagates the teaching. Emitted indicates the chanting of Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, which is the practice of the teaching. It may be said of Nichiren and his followers who now chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo that these words are constantly emitted by the mouth. And when we return, we'll start with chapter 19, Benefits of the Teacher of the Law, 4 important points. Thank you very much.